In the second hour of the show here, we're going to continue with our discussion of CNC machinery. We're going to continue our discussion on that tech art form called lithography, and we might even delve a little bit into a further explanation of what an analomatic clock is. It's the only clock in the world where the human being is actually part of the clock to tell the exact time and date. It's kind of really cool. We're going to check that out. Let's get started.
All right, take that job and shove it. The reason we're playing that song at the mid-hour break, because this is a section of the show where we talk to those people who had a skill, had a trade, had a process or something they were good at, and one day told their boss, "You don't deserve me. I'm too good for this place." And walked out the door and became an entrepreneur and became the master of their own destiny, the captain of their own ship, and said, "I don't know whether or not I can do better, but I'm sure willing to try, and I'm willing to take the risk." And that is part of the great American dream of innovation and part of the American psyche, the American soul. That's what makes us better than a lot of places around the world. And I will actually use the word better. I know it's a politically incorrect term to use that word better nowadays, but it is better. We are better because we do that innovation, and we have courage like that. We take risks in this country, and that's what we're all about. You know, it's not a panacea being your own boss. You know, it doesn't mean you get to take Monday through Thursday off every week and go play golf and stuff, unless, of course, you're going into golf as a business. But it has its rewards, and the actual statistics are that performing the same exact work you used to do for a boss as self-employed, you will earn between 50% to 100% more. You can actually double your annual income by being your own boss doing what you used to do. You'll work more, you'll hold down several jobs because you'll be the bookkeeper, you'll be the salesman, you'll be the contract writer, you'll be the estimator, you'll be the production person, you'll be the number one first employee, you'll be the custodian, you'll be everything. You'll be the guy that changes the toilet paper in the bathroom. But you get paid for every one of those jobs that you hold down in your own business. We are turning back here to our guest this evening who's with us, Mr. Daniel Rich from the original Oregon company, a state-of-the-art CNC company of innovation and research and development, holder of many patents. Some of the stuff is absolutely brilliant. Dan, what are you working on that you can share that's kind of fun, the fun side of being self-employed? Some of the innovation, is there anything you can talk about? I don't want you to blow any of your patents or non-disclosure agreements or anything, but I know you've got some great stuff that you've been working on, or even just conceptually, you know, the kinds of things that you found you could do as the captain of your own ship.
Well, there's things that I'm working on that just still are in the works that it's probably just better to not go there. But some of the things that I'm doing that I enjoy doing are, you know, I've because of knowing CNCs so well, I build my own CNCs, I repair other people's, I take and innovate theirs, you know, so that they take and work for them, because just because you have a CNC doesn't mean that it does what you need it to do. You know, you've got to take and learn to program it to do what you need to do. So I do a consulting business like that. But one of the things that I've done is I do laser CNCs. And so I've innovated the laser CNCs to produce fine artwork. So I produce fine artwork on metal, wood, bone, jade, glass, and then I donate it to different community organizations who auction it off for, you know, funding to carry on their own thing, whether it's to the Veterans Outreach for funding to carry on their charitable works, or whether it's to the community kitchen who has silent auctions that feed our community. So I do that. I've innovated lasers into now carving marble and granite so that I had the ability to privately fund a veterans memorial for the city that I live in. The city I live in is a Purple Heart city. We have wonderful veterans, far more qualified than I am. You know, I would owe them a debt of gratitude for forever at some point or another, but we didn't have a veterans memorial in our city. So I'm privately funding a veterans memorial for all the veterans that live in our community, visit our community, or ever, you know, have heard of our community. So it's just the things that you can do. You don't always have to do them for profit. You can use the technology you have for the well-being of your community, and that's what makes community. Community sometimes isn't where you live, it's how you live. Things like that matter to me.
Well, I have found with the extended technology like Skype and like internet radio and some of the other social media technology, we have been able to extend community, like in our case between you and I working together and stuff, literally right across the country, 3,000 miles apart. And so the community becomes not a geographic community, but a community of like-minded people working on same goals with similar values, and we become a support team for each other.
With the advent of the internet, I can log into computers across the nation and program their computer and make their CNC at their remote location do what needs to be done. So at some point or another, the internet has really been a big boon to assisting people in innovation.
Exactly. That's interesting because you and I have done stuff like that with TeamViewer and stuff like that. You've come onto some of my computers here, and when we're building our prototype technology for my little R&D company, South Carolina Research and Development, we are working on small-scale ethanol production on a very small scale. But again, our machinery and everything else is automated to the point where we can log online and diagnose, and we could see what's going on with a particular separation reaction or whatever, and we could say, okay, here's what you got to do. Temperature here's got to come up, pressure there's got to go up, and you got to do this, and you got to increase the water flow in the upper cooling chamber. That's it, done. Well, we could diagnose in 15 or 20 minutes over the internet something that would normally put somebody on an airplane and taken them out of the office for a week of troubleshooting. And it doesn't matter where it is in the world, and we can do things like that, and it's pretty amazing. And because of my unique situation, it's so easy, even a blind guy can do it. So, and we do. That was always the standard. With everything we do, every innovation we make, can a blind person do it? Can a person
look at Amazon. Amazon is going to put delivery drivers out of business because they'll have drones delivering things. Things like Domino's Pizza is considering things like this. I don't know how that's going to work. I can't imagine a pizza, but the idea is Amazon is going to put delivery drivers. It's cheaper to have our drones fly and deliver something rather than for us to send a driver.
I'm just not sure if I want a pizza flung through my window at 200 miles an hour.
Well, or just driving, walking down the road, and all of a sudden a pizza falls in your lap, because one dropped, but either way, it's just innovation leads to production leads to profit.
This is probably an unnecessary question, but I'm going to ask you, I'll phrase it this way. Did you see where our brother, Eaglin Mauchline, and I call him our brother of innovation because he's a like-minded person, far better at it than we are, did you see where they landed the X-Dragon on a floating raft out in the middle of an ocean and recovered the first time a rocket's ever been recovered by the human race? And he did it through free enterprise on a budget that NASA or any of these governmentally run space programs around the world wouldn't have even gotten the drawings done for the price that he got the whole thing built and functioning. And after 4 failures, the 4th attempt finally worked, and he got it to land, and it didn't crash, and they solved all the problems. I mean, there's a piece of CNC machinery.
And SpaceX flying to drop off stuff and then coming back and landing back on the landing pad.
Yeah, exactly.
Not coasting in like the space shuttle does, but physically take straight off and land straight down.
Yeah, exactly.
Things like this are awesome.
I mean, it's like Thunderbirds, that animated television series with the puppets out of England back in the 60s, I guess it was. They used to launch straight up and then land straight down. So did Flash Gordon and everybody else. Well, SpaceX, Eaglin Mauchline's company, did it, and God bless them for it. This is what the innovation, free enterprise of this country is about. These are the kind of jobs coming back, but you've got to be prepared to take one. Dan, I know you're pressed for time, and I do thank you for the time you've given us. Is there anything you want to close with that you think our listeners would benefit by knowing?
I think that the one thing you need to do is not be afraid to do something Don't take and be afraid to take that first step. Don't be afraid to try something you've never done. Don't be afraid to take and do something that nobody else has done just because nobody else has done it. That's where innovation comes from. Everything in life is risk and reward. And I hope that I've done well enough tonight that you'll reward me with coming back again someday. That's what I've done. I just wish everybody the best, and don't be afraid to try something you've never done, because you won't know if you like it until you've done it.
Thank you for those words of wisdom. Great point. Mr. Daniel Rich from the original Oregon company up there in Oregon, in case you didn't catch on, that's where it's located. And I want to thank Dan for taking time out today. And the next time he comes back, I have questions from listeners. I actually have about 8 or 10 questions here from listeners, and they all seem to be centered around laser process.
Just let me know when you have an opening, and then we'll answer their questions.
You let me know when you have an opening, and we'll broadcast the show at 3 a.m. on St. Squizzens Day. But anyway, Dan, thank you so much for your time and for helping us out here this evening and sharing your insights and wisdom and personal experience as a man in the trades and a fellow entrepreneur, innovator, inventor, and true visionary, Mr. Daniel Rich from the great state of Oregon and the original Oregon company up there. Good folks. Thank him very much. It's one of those business relationships that became a friendship, and I value Dan's insight and input. I'm forever, ever consulting with him on little projects and stuff, and we're forever blue skying and bouncing stuff back and forth. And it's amazing when you get a mastermind group going like that, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But you get a mastermind group going, and it's amazing how the energy just feeds into itself. I'm amazed how many sharp business people I know who you would consider successful, who consider themselves still well on the journey. That's all they are. They haven't arrived yet. They're still on the journey, and they still plug into a monthly or a bi-monthly mastermind group where they get together, and there are other successful people, some are who are more successful than them, a little less successful than them, but they all sit there as equals, swap ideas, and they rub up against each other and sharpen each other's skills. It is a great concept, and if you want to know how that concept really works, there's a book I would recommend that you read. It's called Think and Grow Rich. As I understand it, it is the second most published book in the world, second only to the Bible. It was commissioned by Carnegie, the steel magnate who was worth $490 million back in like 1890 when he sold his company to J.P. Morgan, or 1900. Carnegie was an immigrant to this country from Scotland, made some steel innovations, founded the company U.S. Steel, and I believe it was U.S. Steel. Carnegie Steel. Excuse me, what am I talking about? Carnegie Steel up in Pennsylvania, started the Carnegie Institute, where a lot of great engineers come out of. He also was a philanthropist and was really incredible. He retired at around age 50, and he had an interesting philosophy of life. He said, I'm going to spend the first half of my life earning the money, and I'm going to spend the last half of my life giving the money away, because his philosophy was, if you die rich, you die disgraced. That was a quote. He felt that if people could get educated, that they could become wealthy. That was the promise of America. If you learned something, you could become wealthy. And what he did was he took his wealth and he started giving it away. Half the libraries in the United States by the beginning of the 1900s, the 20th century, half the libraries in the United States were funded by Mr. Carnegie himself. It was absolutely pretty amazing, because he felt if the poor had a free place to go where they could read and learn and teach themselves things and improve themselves, they wouldn't have to be poor anymore. By the way, though he gave hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars away in his life, he died with almost more money than he retired with, because it kept growing and growing, and he kept being blessed by the fact that he couldn't give it away fast enough it would grow. He opened some great institutes in his name, and including the Carnegie Mellon Institute, which is one of the most revered engineering schools in the world to this day up in Pennsylvania. I think I'm going to do something here as an adjunct to this show, because this show is about American innovation and the people who work hard and build things and create things and make things and keep them running and service this country and keep this fine machine called the American Dream finely tuned and well-oiled and running and running and running for anybody that wants to step up and start turning the handle to see what the machine can crank out for them and their family and their heirs. There's a great series, and I think we're going to start playing that series. It's the industrial giants of America. It's a short little 15 and 20-minute stories. Oh, there's about 50 of the people like Thomas Edison, Charlie Steinmetz, Ford, Studebaker, all these guys that started all these different industries and stuff in the late 1800s and 1900s during the Industrial Revolution. We're going to get those, and we're going to put those up on the website and start making those available for those of you that really want to listen to those. And I'm going to start doing a book list because today with audiobooks, I am so excited. I'll tell you, Mr. Carnegie, I love your memory and I appreciate your thought, but you weren't thinking of a blind kid. I remember as a kid walking past the public library in my town, and I was the pesky little kid that if I saw somebody working, I'd be asking them, what's this, what's that? Can I touch your tools so I can figure out what they were doing? Because I couldn't see what they were doing. Fortunately, I was blessed with very kind-hearted teachers who were willing to share what they knew with me as I was growing up as a kid. In Waterbury, Connecticut, which was a dying industrial center. You know, after World War II, the industry began to die. By 1960, there were mass layoffs and factories closing all around me, but there were still enough tradesmen around and enough skilled people in those factories, tool makers and forgemen and tin knockers and people like that I could still learn a lot from them. It was great, but I used to walk by that library, the Silas Bronson Library, down there at the corner of Grand and Meadow Street, in Waterbury, Connecticut, downtown. I would walk by that library and I would just turn toward that building and have this sinking feeling in my heart because in there were all those great books, all those incredible books with all that knowledge that I wanted to know, and I couldn't read a single one because I was blind. This was long before books on audio and stuff like today. We'll talk about that here after we come back after this next break.
You are listening to I Love My Tools, the radio show, with your host, Mike DeZinno, America's Blind Tradesman. And now, back to the show.
Okay, thank you, Abbott and Costello. Oh, that's good. That brings us to my topic of work ethic, which we talked about tonight on several occasions, but parents, grandparents, neighbors, friends, best friends, tell best friends the truth. If you got a friend who's lazy, tell them that is not the path to life. You can't take 35 or 40 years to find yourself because no one's going to knock on your door and say, "Hi, I'm the found you man, and here's what I'm going to give you, a bag of your found." No, like Dan said, you go out there and you experiment. Try something. If you don't like it, find something else. But get out there and get it done fast. Get it done in 5 years or 10 years. Don't get it done over 40 years. I'm telling you, once you find something you really, really, really enjoy, you'll throw your watch away. You only need it to tell what time it is so you can keep an appointment with the next person that wants your product or services. And you'd be excited to go on that appointment. When you're doing what you love to do, once you find that, you will never work another day in your life. Every day will be play. Every day will be fun. Last week, I missed a point, and I want to cover that. We were talking about how to protect your business, and I wanted to squeeze this point in. Sometimes when you are employed in the trades as a trade person, be it as somebody's employee or as self-employed, sometimes you take your equipment with you, and for sometimes it's in your car or it's in your truck and it's away from your primary residence. Check with your insurance agent. Sometimes that stuff is still covered in case somebody breaks into your car and should steal it from you, or if during an accident or something it would be damaged. It could be covered automatically by some of your homeowner policies. It would not necessarily be covered by your motor vehicle policy, but it may be covered by your homeowner's policy. You might want to check into that. Just a little tip there to help save you some money. You heard from Dan tonight what made the decision to become his own boss was because everybody kept telling me he had skills that they didn't want, so he found a path that he could follow. And, of course, he jumped right into it. I transitioned a little bit slower. I had a job and started part-time working for myself on the side, and one day I walked out on the job, and my part-time became my full-time career some 40-plus years ago. If we talk to people, and you will find that as we talk to people here on the line, you're going to find that their circumstances were all a little bit different. Some were married, some were single, some had kids, some didn't have kids, some were scared to death, some were enthusiastic and overly optimistic. That's almost as bad as being scared, I think. And they all had different ways of how they funded what they wanted to do and got some startup capital to take it on and all. We'll be talking about those topics. We'll be bringing people on. By the way, I remember that series. It's called The Captains of Industry, and it's an old-time radio series from the 1930s that features the people who built the Industrial Revolution in the United States, the innovators. We're going to find some way to get that information over to you. And, of course, a little humor there with Abbott and Costello, loafing, the new job skill. I just don't know how people could live in their parents' basements and do nothing. I mean, I know, you can get hooked on playing the video games and all that. Yeah, I understand that, the little whatever those games are, the apps and stuff. But that's not a life. And, you beat some stranger for points over on the other side of the world. Well, what does that do to change your life? And the answer is nothing. But you notice the sense of accomplishment they have even about something as unimportant as that. Parents, you're getting all the signs that your kids really are starved for esteem-building activities. Really, you're getting the message loud and clear. They got bragging rights on social media because they got 300,000 points more than somebody else they don't even know for doing some silly little video game that changes nothing in their life. You're getting the messages. They're starved for self-esteem. They're starved for identity. They're starved for personal accomplishment. They love competition. Stop insulating your children from competition. Competition is not a dirty word. It's not evil. It builds character. It builds a little bit of go-to-itness, get after it, aggressiveness. And there's nothing wrong with being aggressive because you're going to keep getting pushed back to the end of the line and you're never going to get someone to hand you that donut if you're not a little bit self-assertive and aggressive and if you don't have a little bit of an ego. And there's nothing wrong with having an ego. I always have to laugh on this one. I've heard people who were very accomplished and stuff, people say, yeah, but matter of fact, we have this going on right now with Mr. Donald Trump. Everybody's saying, he's always right. He's got a big ego. He's a narcissist. He always thinks he's right. Well, you know what? Think about this logically. Look at what he's accomplished. Now, I want to know how many people out there, whether you've accomplished a lot like Donald Trump or you've accomplished a lot less in your life, but you've had some small accomplishments. How many of you ever proceeded into a course of action if you didn't think you were right? Think about that. Only an idiot would proceed a course of action if you believed you were wrong. Of course you always think you're right if you're an entrepreneur. You have to. Only a fool would cross a road if they thought today was the day they were going to get run over. Of course you have to think you're right all the time. Once met a highly paid executive for, it was either Mobil or Exxon, one of the old oil companies. This is back in the late 70s. He was making about $150,000 a year, which to me, a kid being raised poor, living on like $3,500 a year in income, I was below the poverty level in those days when I built my first company. It was amazing. I wanted to know, how'd you do that? How'd you become an executive? He said, well, you show them you can make decisions. And I was thinking, my word, to be an executive making $150,000 a year, boy, you must make a lot of decisions right. And he says, no, actually, if you can make 30% of them right, you're good executive material and you'll move up in corporate America very quickly. I was shocked at that. He said only 30% of your decisions have to be right. He says, yeah, they're more looking for somebody who makes decisions. And if you're right 30% of the time, you're far more valuable than the person who, faced with 100 decisions, only makes 2, and they're all right, and you're 100% right, because the 98 that you didn't make a decision on meant your division, the resources in your division, the talent in your division, the mission in your division was all floundering, and nothing was going on, and there was chaos and ruin, and the company was hemorrhaging resources. They would have preferred to have somebody who was giving it some structure with decisions and direction, even if it turned out to be wrong, having a direction to pursue and hold the team together as a congealed team and an effective team. It's easy to make course corrections to correct what isn't perfect. It's a lot easier than to sit there, let it all flounder, let it all fall into shambles like a house of cards collapse, and then try to rebuild it once you finally made the right decision. So he told me that if out of 100 decisions, if you make 30 of them right, you're a top executive in most U.S. corporations. I don't know if those percentages are 100% accurate, but I can see the wisdom in over somebody who would only make 10 decisions out of the 100 and be right about all 10 and let the other 90 go with no decision. He's already made 90% error as far as they're concerned. So there's a little bit of wisdom too. Don't be afraid of making decisions. They're not that big of a deal. Most decisions you will make in business are not life and death. They're calculated risk, and there's a lot of wisdom, a lot of great books written out there on the subject of how to manage money and everything else, and there's a lot of great online college courses you can take and everything else. Yes, I said the word college. College is only detrimental to those who go rack up big debt and come out with something that isn't marketable. It's a bad choice. It's like me wanting to be a blind carpenter and going to a tool store and just walking out with a stack of paper and a bunch of pencils as my only tool choice. Well, since I can't see what I'm writing, it's a pretty useless selection. I'd have been better off with a hammer and a saw and a square. At least that I could use. So that's my only gripe about college. They don't give the kids the truth about what they're pursuing. Anything to fill the seats in the classroom. It's like a bus that knows it's going over the cliff, and 9 out of 10 buses that leave the bus terminal are never going to get to a destination, and all those people are going to be dropped over the edge of a cliff, and yet they continue to take bus fares from those people. That's how I see college. I think kids today are not getting properly counseled, and they're not getting the truth about what it is they're trying to pursue in college. And it's unfair. It's terrible. And so the bottom line is if you have children, raise them with a work ethic, it'll give them self-esteem. Start giving them tasks, giving them chores to do. Hand them a screwdriver and ask them to tighten the loose screw here and there and stuff. Let them feel good about something. It's just one of those things you just need to do. As I said, Dan and I were old friends. We've known each other a while. We originally met working in social media, actually, is how we met. And we were both parallel running forums trying to warn people about some of the scams going on in the public, for investment scams and stuff. And there were some things out there. I don't need to mention them here. And it was funny because Dan and I realized we were like-minded, and when we began to read, there was a website up there that would report the evil people of that scam. One day our name showed up on that website. We got to meet the guy running the website, and he said, here's the only 2 people you can trust when they're talking about this particular set of investments. And he said, because they're the only ones telling anybody the truth. And, of course, what happened after that, Dan called me up. That's how he came to talk to me. And he said, you won't believe it, but you and I have been listed over at the, over there. And I said, why? What did I say or do? And it was wrong because we were running internet conference calls and stuff, and we were running conference line forums and stuff. I had a database of about 7,000 followers. Dan had a database of a comparable number. And one day we said, why don't we throw in together and do this together? If we're going to take heat for what we're doing and be bashed and ridiculed by the con men and the snakes and everything else, I said, let's do it together. We'll have fun. So we started working together, and we would do 3, 4, 5 hour long, several nights a week, Q&As with people calling in, literally thousands of people calling in, and we would take Q&A on the air live. It was awesome. We put up the website, we put up replays, we did this, we did that, we answered questions. We found documents from all the governments around the world showing that some of those money exchange deals were scams. We found documents from the World Bank, from the BIS, Bank of International Settlements over in Zurich. We found the world courts, and then WikiLeaks came out. Remember the WikiLeaks documents there? Well, in those documents, we found more proof that what we had said was true. And we went on the air one night and revealed that and everything else. Oh, you would not believe it. I mean, I had emails with death threats in them and everything else because I dared to tell the truth. Well, what's really funny? All the people who were knocking us and who were slamming us have since become indicted. As a matter of fact, several are already in prison. And they were all federally indicted. And I remember when they made the statements they made on open lines, having once been licensed in the area of security, they said, you can't say that. You can't say that legally. This guy just in an hour and a half on a conference call broke at least 16 federal laws that I can count. Well, When I got the word that he had been indicted, that group of people, that they had been indicted, I was just shocked that it took so long. It took 18 months instead of 14 months. I thought the government would move quicker, but nobody was complaining. But when what Dan and I were trying to expose to that particular community of people came out there, people began to see we were right. So some of those people's stars didn't shine quite as bright as they once did. And that's how Dan and I met. And of course, when you meet under battlefield conditions, and many of you veterans who were warriors and war-tested and have served in hot spots around the world can attest to, you form a kinship where sometimes a non-PC sick sense of humor, let's just call it what it is, kind of helps you survive the moment. It's how you get through the terror. It's how you get through the fear. I mean, I was taking some of these death threats pretty seriously, Well, Dan and I would go on the air and we would do the humor. We would make jokes about it and everything else. And we would have fun, and we would read a document, or we would put up on the website a link that they could go to where they could read from some international agency like Interpol or something that what we were saying was the truth. And we always said, don't take our word for it. This is too important. Do your own research. Go there. None of this stuff is a website that is merely echoing our opinion. These are where we're getting our opinions from, because we're reading these documents. We're reading section 32 through 36 in the document from the central bank of this government and everything else. And we were reading that stuff, and so you can read it for yourself. Some of the currency dealers and stuff were coming on the line, and they were saying, yes, and you didn't go far enough because you could have said this, this, and this, and this. And that put them under fire because they were siding with us. So it became this battlefield humor between Dan and I, and we had a lot of fun with it. One night, we did the who's on first kind of thing. And what happened was one show host went ballistic. One of the people who we were exposing as spreading misinformation that was hurting people financially went ballistic when one of his callers had read something we posted or was on one of our shows or asked us a question and had the nerve to go on to his show and say, well, I was talking to Mike and Dan last night, and they just asked me, anytime anybody says anything, just get where they got it from. So where is the link that you got it from? And the guy went ballistic. He went absolutely ballistic on his own listener. I mean, to where people on his staff, his producers, had to pull him off the air and put him off the air for a half an hour until he could calm down. It was so funny. He used to go as the name is Straight Talk. That's how part of his moniker. I won't give his whole name, but he would refer to himself as Straight Talk so-and-so. And we began to refer to him as Straight Jacket so-and-so because he went nuts. And then we did this kind of like who's on first thing, and Dan was reading our article and how we felt about what happened and our apology to the listener of ours that went over there and took heat because of us. It was directed toward us because of our work. And we took the high road. And Dan kept casually just slipping in Straight Jacket instead of Straight Talk. And I'm saying, you said it again. And then we went back and forth to where he had me saying it backwards and stuff. And it was very humorous. It was all done spontaneously. Well, we began to do other routines like that. And matter of fact, I'll play one of the routines that we absolutely love, because we began to tease each other about being brothers and how Mother loved you better. And it became so humorous that people actually thought Dan and I were brothers. Let's take a break right now, and let me play that for you. Great track from the Smothers Brothers. One of the funniest things, this is what Dan and I used to do on the air. We'd parody this about our own circumstances, being under fire, and a little bit of our own non-PC battle humor. Here we go.
You are listening to an episode of I Love My Tools, the radio show, with your show host, Mike DeZinno, America's blind tradesman. And now, let's get back to the show.
Thank you, Tommy and Dick Smothers. Thank you for some great memories back in the 60s when they used to do the Smothers Brothers show. They were great humorists together. Back in the day, we loved their albums, and as kids, we loved emulating them. So Dan and I used to play Mom Liked You Better on the air all the time when the evil people of the scam artists out there would attack us and stuff. Anyway, you're listening to I Love My Tools, the radio show with your host, Mike DeZinno, America's blind tradesman, and you are listening via the courtesy and the auspices of American Patriot Radio. I want to take a moment here and thank Doc Miola, who's my producer here tonight and making all the behind-the-scenes technology and all the buttons pushed correctly. Thank you, Doc. If you would love to communicate with us. We'd love to hear from you. I did have questions from some folks here that I didn't get a chance to ask Dan tonight. He had to cut his time short. Some family matters came up, and he had to address those, which is one of the reasons why you work so hard as an entrepreneur, so you can be there for your family when the time comes. And it's one of the priorities you do set, and you do have the luxury of setting that sometimes, because you don't have to go to a boss and ask for permission to go home early or to take a day off or to have a raise. You just handle all that internally. It's a private board meeting, you alone at your kitchen table where no one else has a vote. It's awesome. Communicate with us at questions@ilovemytools.com, comments at ilovemytools.com, and if you go to ilovemytools.com, become a member of the I Love My Tools crew. Become a member of my crew. Come on, let's work together. Let's do some great stuff together. We've got some great prizes and things that we're putting together for you good folks. I'll be starting that entrepreneurial mentoring program for people who are in the trades who want to work for themselves. I'll teach you a few things that I've learned the hard way over the years. I've made millions of dollars of mistakes getting my many PhDs in stupidity, and I'll save you all the trouble of doing that so you could net the big money like I've been able to do over the years. You'll be better off for it. It's a great way to live. You could easily earn double, triple, or more times what it would be to be someone else's employee. You know, in life in general, we used to say this about securities and investments too. If somebody is guaranteeing you a particular return, what they're really guaranteeing you is a loss. And I feel the same way about a job. And I'm sorry, that's just my own thing, being self-employed. But I just found they can't overpromise what they can deliver. So they promise a lot less, and they know they can do a lot better, and that goes in their pocket so that they've got the slush fund to pay you in a bad year. But that means all those other good years, you didn't get the extra. So why leave any money on the table? Your working career is short. If you have your health until you retire, that's great. If you don't have your health until you retire, you need that extra money to set up a proper plan to take care of you, your family, and your significant other and meet your obligations. So plan on becoming self-employed and setting yourself up as the patriarch of the family, as we had talked about. You want to be that painting above the fireplace one day, the person who established the multi-generational financial stability in your family. And you're the painting above the fireplace that 5-6 generations from now, everybody looks at it. Nobody knew who you were, but they all know your name, and they all walk by and say, "Thanks, great-grandpa," or "Thanks, great-grandma, so-and-so." That's why I was born with a trust fund. That's why I was born able to do whatever I want to do in life. That's why I don't worry about survival and all those other things that most people worry about. I'm telling you, you can be the one that changes it for your family forever by starting a family business. And speaking of starting a family business, an important issue in that family business is succession. Who takes over? I think it's 90% of the businesses started by an entrepreneur don't survive into the second generation because the children or the heirs have no interest in carrying on the business, don't have the passion for it, and they squabble amongst themselves because they don't know how to work together, because he or she ran it with a tight fist and made a lot of mistakes. And there's a definite way to hand over succession if you want to keep it going. There's a wine company in Italy that is run right now by 2 women or 3 women. They're sisters, and they are like the 15th generation of the founder of the company. It's the oldest privately owned family business in the world that's still in operation. It's like 600 years old, goes back to the 1400s. Saw them on 60 Minutes. You could probably look it up. It's a great story. Well, they figured out the secret of succession and how to hand over the baton. That's an important topic, and if you want to really know a lot about that topic, you need to head on up to the Wharton School of Business up in Pennsylvania. They actually teach courses for entrepreneurs on the topic of succession. How do you hand over the baton to the next generation to keep what you built going? And it's got to do more than go. It's got to grow. It's got to thrive. It can't just merely survive. It's got to be bigger. Perfect example of that is the LL Bean Company. L himself, in his 90s, probably about the early, well, maybe it was in his 70s, in the 50s, in the 1950s, his grandson came out of school and slowly began to morph it to the catalog company we all know today. But L's attitude was, hey, did you eat 3 meals today? Great. You can't eat a 4th meal, so why do we need to grow the company bigger? We're doing just fine. And thank God the grandson took over because, in time, with his ideas and stuff, because Their old way of doing business, they got the company started, did just that. It got the company started. They probably wouldn't have stayed in business all these years, but we all know the name L.L. Bean. His grandfather's memory is revered that way, and the company's still going strong with family members running the company, and some outsiders in there too. And the same goes with Ford. You know, Henry Ford started it, some of his sons participated, his children, and then you got to hand the baton over to someone else. So succession is an important thing because you're going to want your legacy preserved, and you're going to want to know, more importantly, that your family is ready to take it over, that whoever you leave it in the hands of is a capable administrator, and that it isn't about losing your hard work. It's about making sure the good work that you intended to be done continues on. That's your legacy, that what you started continues to grow, thrive, and does more than just go and survive. After meeting Dan tonight, you don't doubt for a minute that he is that painting on the wall for his family. I know he takes care of a number of his family members, and he's a good man that way. And he loves what he's doing. And he loves the responsibility that he's the provider. It's a good feeling to know that you not only provide for yourself, but you can provide for others. The concept that I use as a visual on that is my umbrella may not be the biggest umbrella in the world. I mean, when you look at the Forbes 400 list, I don't have the biggest umbrella in the world. Far from it. But you know what? I always seem to manage to stretch it just a little bit more to take one or two more people out of the rain. You know, it's amazing how that works when you're called upon to rise up and step up to the occasion. We're going to invite you to join our crew, and we're going to invite you to go on over to ILoveMyTools.com and participate in the forums over there, ask your questions. We have videos over there. We have some of the how-to videos. We'll be putting more up there the next few days, too, of just different things I'm doing. I'm filming some stuff right now, little concepts, because I'm always getting, well, how does a blind guy do this? How does a blind guy do that? Well, I'll show some of the little tricks, how I've modified my tools and made little fixtures and little things that help me do skilled work at a very efficient level. And I just have fun doing it, and it's fun. It's like solve the problem. And I love solving problems. I don't run from it. I enjoy it. I thrive on problem solving. I just absolutely love it. Oh, by the way, I almost forgot. We've got some great apps that we produced. Yes, this is so politically incorrect. I absolutely love it. Go on over to ILoveMyTools.com, and you will go over to our page of apps. We have a Google Chrome Store app that you can download and play for free, and we have one over on Facebook. It's called Are You Smarter Than a Blind Tradesman? Oh, so politically incorrect. I don't care. I get to make fun of me, don't I? Don't I? Has the world gotten all that twisted that political correctness is now I can't even make fun of me? Anyway, are you smarter than a blind tradesman? And you can go over there, and there's a number of quizzes you can take. There's 10 questions in each quiz. You get a score if you share it with your friends and stuff. And you get some of your friends to go over and try the app. We love that, too. So, and again, you know, look, don't share it with somebody who has no interest in the trades. Maybe you got some people who have some interest in little, you know, weekend warrior handyman or handy woman type things, and let them try it. Let them see what their general knowledge base is. We have them in automotive, plumbing, electrical, heating, air conditioning, welding, ventilation. What else is there? General. There's all kinds of different quizzes up there, different categories. And it's all based upon my own personal experience, having worked in a number of the trades over the years and having fun learning. And the knowledge does cross over after a while. You step into a brand new trade and you probably already know 50% of it just because of stuff you've learned in 3 or 4 other trades. You just basically have to learn your new materials. How do you cut them? How do you assemble them? And how do you measure them? And, you know, what are your tolerances you can work within? It's pretty cool after a while. The knowledge does cross over very, very nicely, especially for those of you that want to go into being a general contractor of some type or a consultant of some type. Believe me, there is nothing like firsthand experience when you're having a discussion with somebody to explain to them exactly why you want what you want or why you're not satisfied with what they gave you after you told them what you wanted. It gives you a lot more street cred when you know what you're talking about. You are listening to I Love My Tools, the radio show. Right now we're taking questions and comments via email, questions@ilovemytools.com and comments@ilovemytools.com. And eventually we'll be throwing open the phone lines, and we'll probably expand the show on those nights to an additional hour to handle the phone calls, take live questions with our guests and all. And we're looking forward to that. But in the interim, you can participate in the forums. You can go over and see some of the how-to videos that I have put up over at ilovemytools.com. You get to see a blind guy do things, and I'll wave at you. You look at the video, I'll look up and just wave right at you probably if I see you're there. It's hard to believe the 2 hours this evening that we've been together have literally flown by here. We've been having a ball here tonight. Anyway, this is what it's about. Find something that you would love to do and just do it to excess. You will go to bed every night totally exhausted with only one thought on your mind. You can't wait to wake up in the morning and get back on the horse and ride again because you're having way too much fun being a cowboy. And I'm telling you, it's a great life. Find out whether or not you're cut out for the trades. Find out whether or not this is your path to happiness and to your slice of the great American dream. And as always, be safe, stay productive, keep loving those tools. Let's get back to the old America where hard work mattered, innovation meant greatness, and let's become the America that we once were. Let's put everybody back to work doing something that makes them feel good about themselves. Good night. God bless you all. This is Mike DeZinno, America's Blind Tradesman. Have a great weekend.
We hope you found this show informative, and if you did, we'd appreciate if you could take some time to just click on the like button. Also, because of the Million Job Movement, the more subscribers we have to our YouTube channel, the more credibility we have with the people who are helping us get that word out and help those 1 million people find high-paying, rewarding careers in the trades. That's an important mission we have. So please take the time to subscribe to our YouTube channel, americasblindtradesman.com. Thank you, and we will see you in the next video.